This city has 120,000 people, and lack of labor is starting to drive me insane. So today, I'm going to spend as much of this 286 million as it takes to try and hit 1 million population. It's been 30 hours. I'm starting to go a little bit insane. For my own sanity, I'm going to start at the edge of the playable area and then work my way towards the central area. And that's only because if I don't give my brain one clear direction to build in, this is going to become chaotic. So let's start in this chunk right here. And honestly, from up here, it looks pretty small. But when you compare it to the size of a 6-lane road, this is actually a crazy amount of space. As of right now, we're at 122,000 population. So let's see what all of this land will get us. We're gonna need a main road to run through this area. And now I wanna send this underneath the train tracks. This is where the trams are gonna terminate. So let's swap to a 4-lane divided road. And all I wanna do is mirror the tile's edge. And I have a feeling that traffic is probably gonna get really bad in this area. So we're gonna stub a connection off towards the interstate. And now it's there just in case we ever need it. I really hope that we don't. We are gonna need another connection though. So let's send a road parallel with this back road. And that gives us the 2 main roads in this area. Before I forget, I'm going to quickly wrap this tram track around and create a place for it to loop and stop, and then head all the way back down to our central area. And what is going on over here? I'm seeing lots of hearse icons, and it is a bit concerning. So let's quickly add in one more crematorium right here. And if 7 crematoriums isn't enough for this city, I'm getting concerned for what's about to happen later on. Now, because we have the main roads placed in, I'm gonna go through and quickly build out a suburban grid. And that was a complete nightmare. In total, it took me 2 hours to build this suburban grid. Now, I wanna hurry up and start adding some population. Before we do that though, we are going to need a medical clinic. And let's have this front our main road. There's District 1 and 2. The only reason we need the districts is so we can assign our services to them. Now, if I'm being honest, I don't think this one medical clinic is going to be enough. So we're going to place a few more of these smaller medical clinics. And now there's a central clinic and a dedicated doctor's office for each of the districts. Because the better our services are, the more demand we'll have. And we're going to need as much as we can possibly get. Now let's use the southwestern fire station. And we'll place that over by our train tracks, because the train is noisy and the fire trucks are also noisy. Next up, we're going to need a crematorium. Alright, so that's medical, death care, fire. Now all we're missing is police and schools. So we will go with the bigger southwestern police station, and we'll center that right here in District 2. And now finally, all we need is a high school and an elementary school. We're going to use the Southwestern Elementary School because they have the most room for capacity. And right away, we are just going to start adding upgrades. Now this building has a capacity for 4,000 students. If that's not enough, then I genuinely don't know what is. The second last thing we're missing is the Southwestern High School. And of course, it's gotta be this one because look at it. If this isn't suburbs, then I don't know what is. Now this is gonna be an area for big box retail, so we can't place it there, but I think right here is gonna be perfect. Which means the last thing that we need to add in before we can do some zoning is a post office. In fact, maybe right beside our high school. Maybe the students work here part-time or something. We do have a few upgrades, and I do think this area is gonna need it. Now that we have this building in, we can finally go around and place all of the mailboxes. And now our coverage is solid green. We are going to start adding population in a second, but we need to add in some stores first. Because if we didn't have a giant Walmart or a grocery store or anything like that, will people really want to live here? Probably not, because the only jobs this district is providing is the services. So of course, we are going to need one big old Walmart, and then let's run an alleyway through here, and flip this building around. Now the rest of this lot is going to be dedicated to an obscene amount of parking. And there's all the beautiful Walmart parking in all its glory. We do have a lack of labor, so I definitely need to start moving a little bit quicker. Now let's also add in this Best Buy because it comes with its own parking, which means I don't have to make any, and that's the dream. And then of course, we have to add in a Barnes & Noble because I'm starting to fear for my life. And I seriously hate making parking. Now let's formally split these two lots in half. And no way, Nitro Kingdom? We gotta have go-karts. I would consider it an insult if we didn't. And I do want to save a section just for car-centric fast food commercial and an AutoZone, because why not? And this truly is going to be the most perfect asset. We have the Dollar General. Let's get some of the biggest gas stations we can find. There. Surely 7 gas stations is enough. The last store that I'm going to place in is the H-E-B supermarket, and everything else surrounding it is just going to be some parking. After that, we'll finally be ready to do some zoning, and hopefully there's enough jobs here. And there we go. I would consider this to be perfect, because I don't want to do any more. Now the lack of labor is actually amazing, because the number one thing that I'm worried about is unemployment in both of these districts. Unfortunately, there's only 1,890 jobs in District 1 and 142 in District 2. But for now, that's going to be plenty, because it's finally time to increase our population. Right now we're at 119,000, and we're losing 176 per hour. I want to use the suburban assets by Smiley, because they are just perfect. It is exactly what I would expect to see in this area. Now, I'm going to go through and zone in pretty much this entire area. And that's probably going to take an hour. So I will see you on the other side when our population is hopefully at least 150,000. That's what I need to see from these two districts to make it worth it. And I don't get it. I genuinely don't get it. It's been 2.5 hours, and everything is finally plopped in. Anywhere that has this fancy grass, that's going to be reserved for a park, or even just a path. But the thing I don't get is that District 2 has 2,500 residents, and District 1 has 4,200 residents. But yet, since the start of this video, we've lost 1,000 population. I don't even understand it. It doesn't make sense. Another thing that I'm noticing is that the majority of people who live in these two districts are very old. The not enough customers bug has spread even further. We also have a big lack of labor throughout the entire city now, and it's hit the worst possible place, the industrial district. And here's my theory for why any of this is happening. So the people who live in these medium density buildings, that could be the row homes, some of these apartment buildings, or even some of the high density residential, they're saying, screw this. I don't want to live in the downtown core. I want to live all the way over here in the suburbs. And that's why we haven't increased the population at all. And it should also explain all of the lack of labor. And I don't know what to do. I genuinely don't know what to do. The only possible solution is to continue expanding. And with that expansion, I can only hope that our population actually goes up. First, I'm seeing a tiny bit of traffic. Oh yeah, just a very small amount of traffic here. And it makes sense. If you think about all of this, it's essentially one giant cul-de-sac. We're going to give 2 connections. One will be into this highway over here. But that's still not good enough. We're going to need one more proper connection from the interstate into our new city. You're also probably noticing the train tracks are massive. For some reason, the only thing that'll allow these trains to move is 4 tracks. I don't want to worry about this too much right now. For the interchange, I do want to have some development down here, so I'm going to use the angled partial cloverleaf. And with that in place, I'm just going to quickly get everything connected up. And because I've crashed twice trying to make this interchange, that's where I'm going to walk away. It's good enough. Thankfully, it does seem like our population's increasing now, and it better stay like that. Looking at the statistics for the last year, it's pretty much flatlined. So that's definitely not good. We need to pump those numbers up. Before we move on to the next area, let's make sure to add in a few parks. Because hopefully that's enough for new people to want to move in, rather than people move from our downtown to the new suburbs. And for the parks, I'm going to keep this super simple. Each of these areas with the green texture will get some type of park, a path, and a few trees. That's all I'm going to do. Alright, that is going to be all of the parks done. Don't ask me about this one. And I think it came out pretty nice. What I don't think came out nice is that we only have 123,000 residents, which means it's time to get working on the next area. I want to section this middle area off because we could use this to expand all of our train infrastructure, which is probably going to be sorely needed very soon. For the time being though, we need to work on our population. So I'm going to spray some trees and call it a day. Now unfortunately, the air pollution blows this way. Otherwise, I would have loved to have a little industrial section here. So for my own convenience, I'm going to skip right past this area and we'll get to work on these 2 giant plots. And honestly, it's a lot of land. And really the big key thing with these 2 lots is that it shouldn't feel as suburban as this area, but it also shouldn't feel like a direct continuation from our downtown grid. There needs to be a sense of cohesion and continuity, but also there should be some clear differences. And looking at the air pollution, it is blowing across the water, which is really good news. What's not good news is that our unemployment is 0.4%. That's honestly awful. We have 72,000 jobs, 57,000 employed, and that right there is what's causing the lack of labor. So I want the grid to be built in mind, with the idea of potentially building industrial here. We're also going to have to section this area off because there's a whole bunch of air pollution, and thankfully the ground pollution is contained. So I'm going to start on this side over here. And like always, I want to get my main roads in first because this is going to influence everything else that we do. And now from here, I'm going to use a normal 2-lane road and build a fairly standard grid because I don't want to spend 2 hours plopping down residential buildings again. That was a nightmare. And here is the grid. It's not really suburban, but it's also not a perfect rectangle, so we're going to have a great balance between easy to zone and freedom to use almost any building type. I am going to consider these 2 forest areas to be protected, at least for the time being. And wait a minute, our population is at 124,000, it's about time. This is the first increase I've seen this entire video. And it's not even a big one either, it's only 2,000. Which just kind of hurts because this was 2 days of work. Either way, we can do it. I know we can get way higher than 124,000. By the time we're done, 124,000 is going to be peasant numbers. And if we want people to move in, we are going to need a few areas dedicated for parks. So I'm going to choose the areas that are the weirdest shapes and would be the most difficult to zone. And so we can assign services, we are going to need a district. That gives us Brookfield, If you have a better name, drop it in the comments below. Now I just want to quickly get our services in, and last time we played it safe with a bunch of low density, but that didn't solve anything. We still have 1.2% unemployment, we still have lack of labor everywhere, and a concerning amount of hearse icons. Yeah, let's just continue to ignore that. Basically, I think playing it safe with more low density isn't going to do the trick. So this is going to be more of a medium density area, and we need our services to reflect that. So let's add in the Northeastern Medical Clinic. And this facility is going to need some parking. And you shouldn't have to pay to park at your local medical clinic. That should be banned. Next up, we're going to need a crematorium. We'll use the good old vanilla crematorium. If it would stick to the road, why won't you face the road? Please. Please face the road. Just do it right now. Thank you. Amazing. And right off the bat, we're going to give it all the upgrades, because I think playing it too conservatively has created a problem that I have been ignoring, and wow, it is getting worse. And in the spirit of ignoring, let's just keep ignoring. And hopefully this is going to be enough. Now, only if it would snap to the road. Amazing. Thank you. And let's have our fire coverage right here. And I think given that we have all these forests nearby, we're going to unlock and we're going to place the fire watch tower. And where is the highest point? Looks to be right about there. And next up is police. Let's just place it in right there. Then let's have the Eastern European Modern Post Office. Give it all the upgrades. Make sure to set it to this district only. And place in some mailboxes. And we're so close to being done. We just need an elementary school and a high school. Let's get the elementary school right here. And then a bit of parking for the teachers. And then last but certainly not least, let's add in this high school. And right behind it, we're going to add in a soccer field. And of course, some more parking. And I know we only have the services in, but I actually think it looks pretty good. But now it's time for the part that actually matters. How many people can we fit into Brookfield? At this point in time, we've only managed to add 3,000 people, which means we're nowhere close to our goal. So in order to get there, I want to use Smiley's mixed-use assets, along with some of these row homes. And I have to take a temporary break, because we've hit milestone 20. That makes us a megalopolis, which means we have finally achieved the final milestone. There is nothing beyond this. In fact, the only thing that it truly gives us is a higher loan limit. So now if we wanted to, we could take a $26 million loan. And now we can pay it back immediately, and take another one, and pay it back. Why, you might ask? Well, I would say, why not? I've had to take a break from plopping mixed use, and there's two main reasons. We need residents, not jobs, and because I saw the commercial demand crash. Anyways, with this small break for that amazing milestone, let's get back to plopping. And here she is. In total, 1 hour and 42 minutes for this tiny section of land. I think I may have severely underestimated how much time this would actually take. And I know I said that when I was over here, but now it feels even worse. Don't get me wrong, I do think this area came out amazingly, but if I'm gonna fill out this entire area, I really need to figure out a way to do this quicker. And sure, I could just zone things in, but then it's going to come out horribly, and I'm going to hate it. But I do have some good news and some bad news. This district currently has 15,000 residents. That's it. All of this area just for 15,000 people. And that genuinely kind of hurts. That puts the population at 140,000. I think all I can do is just keep moving forward. So let's finish this area off with some parks. Same thing as last time. We'll give them one park, a path, and then just a few trees. Because we're developing as much as possible, I do think it's important that we take a second to look over our production, and we can see that we have a deficit in wood, a deficit in wheat, and somehow oil? Are you crazy? What do you mean oil? Only 346 tons of oil, that's it? You are all disappointing me. And what is taking so long? And why are some of these boats pink? Anyways, we do have a few deficits, and we have a whole bunch of land. Let's use some of this land to fix some of those. And I want to start with grain. And the majority of this land is fertile, so we don't really have to worry. I'm going to make a super basic grid. And right here, let's have a small forestry industry. And it's going to be ironic because in order to make it, we have to get rid of these trees. And now show me your production. 124 tons per month. That's not too bad. Oh, we have a 213 ton deficit. Yeah, I'm sure it's fine. Let's place in a few grain farms. And here's all of our farms. Now please tell me we have reduced our deficits. Yeah, just barely. Wow, that's kind of pathetic. But I think it's good enough for me to be happy, but it doesn't help improve our population. So we're going to create another area here, but this isn't going to be very desirable. No matter which way you slice it, the land is near the train tracks, which are noisy. It's near the interstate, which is also noisy. It's near my masterpiece of an interchange. But worst of all, it's near our garbage processing facilities. So I can see the land value starting to decrease once we get around this point, which means we're going to keep the grid very simple, and then we'll have to figure out what type of assets will work best once we're done. And there's a new grid. I was really just trying to make it as cheap as possible, which typically means super mega grid. The benefit about the grid as well, though, is now I can just zone things in without having to worry. I do want this area to be kind of a poor area, which means we are going to need excellent police coverage. So let's have the UK police station right here. We'll give it all the upgrades. There's Bedford Downs. If you have a better name, drop it in the comments below. But now we can set this to only operate in this district. But given that this is meant to be kind of a poor district, there's going to be higher crime, so one police station is not going to be enough. We need a second one, and we're going to place that right over here by the farms, and we will add on the extra upgrade. Now we're going to need medical care, so I'm just going to place a few of these small clinics. We have police, we have healthcare, we need death care. And I think a small cemetery would be very fitting. Of course, we're going to have that right near our farms. And I really hope I don't live to regret this later on. Cemeteries are forever. Once you place one in, you can't really just bulldoze it. Well, you could, but that would be a bit messed up. I am scared of the death care though, so I do want to add on the hearse garage. And then a few more burial grounds should be good. And this building has a bunch of capacity, so we are going to provide backup to this district as well. Next up, we need a fire station. And I actually think this was sorely needed for this area anyways, because we have these massive facilities, and I'm sure they're definitely going to be a fire hazard. So let's get this closer to our junk land. And I'm going to add on all the upgrades because why not? We'll set it to both of these districts. And then finally, the last thing that we need is post. And this area is meant to be poor, so let's have 2 basic post offices. And that's all of our services. Now, I have been wrong about every single guess. This district only has 15,000 people. District 1 only has 4,000, which is insane given how much space it takes. District 2 is even worse. It only has 2,500 residents. So at this point in time, I would really love to see way more. We're only at 141,000 population. Nowhere close, not good enough. But this time I have my ace up my sleeve. There's a nice, easy grid to work with, which means zoning is going to be a piece of cake. So before we get any residential in, let's also add in a bit of commercial, and I want that fronting our main street. I do have to be careful though, because we still need people to work in the surrounding districts. Like, look at this, not enough customers already. It's starting to drive me insane. I don't even know how to react to it. And if you even look at over here, they already have a bunch of waiting for hearse icons. And given the capacity of this building, it really shouldn't be all that bad. But yet for some reason, we have 0 out of 18 vehicles in use. That seems reasonable. Anyways, I'm going to continue adding a little bit more commercial. I'm going to remove the zoning from all of the side streets, and then add in some low density residential. The only downside with zoning everything is that it takes a while for everything to fill in, and you don't really get to choose what pops up, which means you get buildings like this that need access to a back road, but I'm not going to give them any. While I wait for everything to fill in though, I do want to turn some of these bigger or weirder lots into parks. It doesn't really have to be anything too nice. And wow, this is taking forever. I know I should be a little bit more patient, considering plopping all the residential in the other areas was like 3.5 hours. But now that I'm waiting for it, it's almost worse. And this area is officially done. There is some weaknesses to zoning, and I realized it a little bit too late. Unless you spend forever controlling which way the zoning will face, you get a lot of inefficiencies. Which is why I had to go through and replace a bunch of the zoning by hand, which defeats the entire purpose. But it didn't take 2 hours, and things are speeding up. So the question becomes, how many citizens did this district add? 3,869.
Why are we still here? Just to suffer?
That honestly just feels like a joke. Like, that can't be accurate. There's no way. Also, before I forget, while I was waiting for everything to fill in, I expanded the farms down here because why not? It makes sense. And we actually are having a bit of traffic problems. What I like though, is that you can clearly see we're making progress. There has been an insane amount of development. We're almost towards the core, and once we get towards the core, that's when we can properly step up our density. But there is another place where we can step it up, and that's right here, right near the airport, which means it is time to extend that grid. Alright, and the key thing to keep in mind with this grid is that we're only going to make a few connections across the highway because this highway road is essentially serving as a back road. But very soon, this entire road is going to be ripped out and replaced with an interstate. And at that point in time, we will be able to make all of the connections across into the other grid. But that time is not now, because now we need to boost our population. So first, let's create a district around this area. It's currently called Briar Rose Bluff. If you have a better name, drop it in the comments. Now, of course, the land value over here could be low and high at the same time. It could be high because we have the water and we have the airport right beside it. It could be low because the airport is right beside it and noisy, and at the moment there's no transit. I'm going to lean on the idea that this is going to be a valuable area either now or in the future. So with that in mind, let's start with our services. Here's the Southwestern Medical Clinic, and we will throw on all of the upgrades, and let's also assign it to the airport. For death care, we will use the Netherlands Crematorium, and given that it looks like we're starting to have some traffic problems, let's place this somewhere central. I do want to try and keep the noisier services closer to this road, so with that in mind, let's have the community fire station right here. Next up, we're going to need police, and I do want this to provide backup to the airport, so let's tuck that back there and add on all of the upgrades. Let's rapid fire these last few. There's mail, and here's a high school, and here's an elementary school. And that is officially all of the services, which means now we can get to the fun part, boosting our population and zoning. And I want to get started with some of these southwestern row homes because they are going to be a perfect fit. And honestly, I think that came out really nicely. In this area here, I wanted to increase the density just a little bit. Just like that right there. Now we have a somewhat dense waterfront, and if this hasn't contributed to our population at all, I'm going to be disappointed. Surely this is a joke. Only 3,000. I really don't know what else to say. Other than that, it's zoning time. The rest of this area is primarily going to be row homes and medium density. There won't be a single family home. It's been 30 hours since the start of this video. I'm starting to go a little bit insane, and I have more good news and more bad news. This district is the densest district so far. It has 20,000 residents. Compare that to Brookfield, which has 16,000, and it almost feels like, we're not in too bad of a spot. But the total population is only 165,000 for this entire city. Do you ever make a decision and then almost immediately regret it once you realize what's involved? Because I seriously regret this. 20,000 is just nowhere near as close. Also, the bad news, traffic is a nightmare. But I still have one more ace up my sleeve, which is why I've saved these two plots. And just look at this road. What even is this? We'll worry about that some other time. So I'm going to filter for the Eastern European pack. I'm going to set the level to 5, and that gives us these low rent buildings. And they're actually pretty nice. But the only thing that I care about is how many residents it can fit. And this building alone can hold 192 households. If you compare that to something like this high density tower, it can only do 300. So all we have to do is make 2 plazas filled with these. And I want to make sure that there's tons of opportunities for parking, because I don't need pathfinding getting any more worse than it already is. Now hopefully that's enough. I'm probably getting a little bit too close to the highway, but you know what, that's a future loon problem. This 6x4 is the biggest variant of this building, which means by the game's calculations, it'll hold the most amount of residents. So there's 6 of these buildings, they can each hold 192 households, which gives us a total of 1,152 households. Times that by 3 and you roughly get 3,500 citizens, which still isn't good enough. I should have done the pre-calculations beforehand. And you know what? I wonder what the Netherlands low rent housing gives us. This building is 72 households, but what if it was a level 5? So that's 80. I think if we optimize our use of space, we should be able to get something fairly dense here. Yeah, that's a bit of a rough one, but I'm genuinely going insane at this point. I'm going to consider that good enough. And we just got a massive boost in population. 2,000 per hour, finally, thank you. Why has this taken 30 hours? Why didn't we get this when we built this massive suburb? And look, even our unemployment is still only 2%, which is actually bad. Ideally, 3 to 5% would be the dream. But that is going to be this district done. It leaves us off at 24,000. And for my sanity, there's only going to be 2 more areas that we're going to tackle. It's going to be name 6 and this lot here. So let's give this a district. And if you have a better name, drop it in the comments below. Now with name 6, I do want to go all out with some towers. The only thing that I'm worried about would be the air pollution and the ground pollution, and probably the land value. Definitely might not be the best place to live. But for Franklin Glen, I want to copy what we did over here. So a very standard, basic, boring grid. That's going to be easy to zone. But the secondary reason is because it allows us to upzone into more of a dense core if we need to. Whereas if you look at these suburbs, there really isn't too much density that can happen down here. The best locations would probably be near the main streets. Now let's start with Franklin Glen. I will save the trees for these 2 districts, but in this one, we are just going to start blasting away. Because who needs trees when you need to grow your population? Certainly not us. And now I'm going to build a very standard grid. Here is our basic grid. The only adjustments that had to be made was the curve around this hill and the curve around this one as well. Now let's quickly get all of our services in. This area is going to be a mix between low density and medium density. So let's have 2 small medical clinics, 1 here and 1 there. Let's have the Chinese fire department right here. Let's have a police station right here. And the recurring theme of this video is that we need way more death care. So let's place this Netherlands crematorium somewhere extremely central. And with 38 vehicles, this better be enough. Let's also operate in this district. And then all we need is mail, and also a few mailboxes. And that's healthcare, death care, schools. Right, I almost forgot schools. In fact, I did forget a school in this area. Let's have the UK elementary school right here. And honestly, right beside it, let's have the high school. And I will come back to fix the surfaces at a later date. This district is going to be much more dense than the last. So let's use the Southwestern Elementary School. This is going to become a main road. Now let's delete this road here. Now this has a capacity for 4,750 students. If that's not enough, then I don't know what is. And then last up, we need a high school. And then all we're missing are a few parks. And I'm going to do this one first this time. So right across from the school, I want a nice little community swimming pool. And basketball. And then across from the high school, I would like to get in a football field. Which means this is one big boy high school. And with our services done, wait a minute, would you look at that? We no longer have not enough workers. It is about time. In fact, I don't see that anywhere, not even in the airport. That is my first big win. I am so happy. And unemployment is at 6%, which is just amazing. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but now I don't have to worry about zoning and commercial, which is what I've been really wanting to do. So right along this main street, we're gonna have some good old commercial. And this is also great because it's right beside the high school. So the students can walk on over and grab some snacks, some lunch, whatever it is. Unemployment has already dropped to 4.8%. And that's because each of these buildings roughly employs 6 to 12 people. Right beside the high school, I'm going to add in some of these low rent buildings. That's because they're going to use up some of our high density demand. And then I want a small rise in density. And then everything between the buildings that aren't filled in, I want to have row homes. And for how quickly I did that, it actually turned out pretty nicely. I am wondering though, what does all of this development get us? Only 3,400 households, and so far, only 6,600 residents? I feel like I'm being bamboozled. And I have burnt through all of our demand. All we have is low density. So I'm going to quickly zone in a bunch of low density homes. And that is Franklin Glen done. This district still only has 8,745 residents. But it's fine. We still have another dense district to make, and that's what we're going to focus on next. All I want to do before I leave this district is fix the disrespect to these hills. So let's add the trees back. And then of course, last but not least, we need to add some parks. So we're going to keep the rest of these very simple. And all of this development puts us at 180,000. I honestly can't believe it. But that's fine, because it's time to zone out the densest area we've done so far. And that's all going to live right here. For starters, we will not be getting rid of any of these trees over here. Honestly, maybe we plant a few more trees to help out. We are going to need a few roads, and these two are going to be the main roads facilitating the upwards movement. This will be denser, so let's make sure to upgrade this to a 4-lane road. And it's really important that this district doesn't live in isolation. We need to connect it with our financial district, which means we're going to need a bridge across. The rest of the grid is going to be very straightforward. And I know I am trying to ignore this district, but it wouldn't make sense if we didn't have a connection into it. It's honestly so nice to see this district connected in with something else. Now I want the skyline to have a bit of contrast, and what I mean is right now most of our high density is all within the same street or block, and I don't know how to explain this. So instead I'm just going to show. We need a road that connects all 3 of these across. Now I want to filter for high density only, and level 5 should give us the tallest buildings, and wow, that's actually kind of puny. I don't know why, but I expected it to be bigger. Yeah, that's so small. Having a few of these smaller buildings over here should be fine. I'm going to imagine that one developer owns this entire lot, and so the buildings are going to look very similar. There is no way that that's enough parking, but we should be able to fit one of these parking garages right in the middle. That's solid. How much does that give us? 3,254. It is about time. This is the only residential in this district. It's about time that we see some numbers go up. And did I forget services? Really? Come on. That's fine. We can do services really quickly. And the Chinese People's Hospital is going to be the perfect fit, but I actually want to get 2 of them in. It feels much more impressive this way. One of these buildings is going to get all of the upgrades. And apparently that breaks. No. Why crash? Why game? Why do this to me? Alright, let's try this again. Just gonna casually clear half that forest. There's all the upgrades. And again, we have no pedestrian access. What about this? Yes, okay, apparently that works. Great. Why did I move it? I literally just crashed from moving. What is wrong with my brain? That is good. I'm not touching this anymore, other than to fix the pedestrian problem that I created. Now let's use the Southwestern Fire Station. And now we're definitely going to need the biggest school that we can get. In fact, we're probably going to need 2 of them. We need these to have a small footprint, which is why we're going to use the urban elementary school. And for high school, we are going to use the Netherlands High School. And I'm going to place that right over here by our train tracks. The train would be noisy, and hopefully the high school won't mind. And just to be extra, I'm going to force the cars to take this path. Next up, we need police, and let's use the Southwestern Police Station, mostly just because it's going to be a great fit right here. And we have this massive post office right here, and I really don't think we need another one, so we'll assign it to this district and throw down a few mailboxes. And I almost forgot a crematorium, so I've quickly extended the grid, because we're going to add one closer to our hospital. And right away, I'm going to give this a bunch of garages. And we'll use this crematorium to provide backup to the financial district. And so finally, it's time to get back to zoning. We have the Polaris Suites. How many households? Only 180? Honestly, a lot less than I would have expected. Next up, we have this custom asset. It's called One North First, and I think it's going to be a really great fit. And it also holds 412 residents. And there really isn't that many skyscrapers for residential. So let's also add in this one. We are out of skyscrapers, so the rest is just going to be hand plopping. So I'm going to quickly fill out these lots. I have spent the last 2 hours being plagued by the save bug, and this is post hotfix, but everything seems to be working. We have our densest buildings in, and now we just need to start transitioning down. And I really like these courtyard buildings, so a few in there just like that is going to look really good. And so far that puts us at 16,000. This is definitely going to be the most dense district. But I did get sidetracked, and that's because I'm seriously on edge from the save bug. Let's add in some smaller towers here. Please. Just work, game. Work. Do it. Save. Save now. No? Okay, awesome. Oh, I'm gonna have a stroke. Alright, it's been a day since I last seen you. Or I guess since you last seen me. In order to fix the save bug, I had to do a whole bunch of things. Primarily, I had to rename my Cities Skylines 2 folder. That's a simple way of putting it. In reality, it took a few hours. District number 6 has given us 16,000 residents, and that's all due to a few heavy hitters. This building alone has 2,188 residents. Lighthouse Point has only 800. Well, that's a bit disappointing. Now, I just want to quickly finish all of the zoning. And to do that, I'm going to randomly split these blocks up one more time, and we'll make sure to connect this into our road. And then I just want to make sure that I'm preserving the right amount of room for the park. And ew, meters. I don't work in meters. Show me units. There we go. Roughly about 10 units. Unfortunately, I've already developed this, but the rest of this is going to turn into a park. And even though I really do like the fall look, I would like to go back to summer now, please. And that's going to be our park. Nice and simple. We just really need some open green space. I really wanted to add the Imperial Heights apartments right here, because then it could be kind of slummy. But I know for a fact that the game is going to punish me if I do. And there's only so many blinking icons that I can stand before I go absolutely loony. But we should be able to work in at least one right here. And the reason why I care about this building so much is because it has 720 households. And if that sounds crazy, it's because it is. This tower over here only has 432. The skyscraper only has 300. And yet somehow, this building has 720 households. It seems very reasonable. So we are going to have a massive parking lot. And this probably isn't even close to enough parking because this building has 1,325 residents. That's honestly more than all of these buildings combined. It's 1/18 of this entire district. Now we can't really build any more slums which means it's time to get plopping. And for plopping, all I really want to do is get in some medium density buildings. An hour and a half later, it is finally done. This district alone is now our densest district. It has 19,000 households, 38,000 residents, which puts our total population for the entire city at 216,000. I genuinely can't believe that I had the goal for 1 million. 1 million just seems nonsensical at this point. I didn't think it was going to be this difficult though. But given that this video has taken me 5 days, and been around 50 hours at this point, there's only 2 more sections that I want to do before I call it and do the final population check. The first one is right here. I really want these 2 areas to feel like they connect, and it should be an easy boost for our population. And that's going to be a massive improvement not only for connectivity, but for the continuation in our grid. Doing that over here is going to be a bit more challenging though. So for the time being, what I'm going to do is just extend this grid out. I don't want to make too many connections into the main road, but I will make one more. And I'm thinking some very basic copy and paste apartments. And each of these buildings has 22 households, that's it? That is pathetic. So let's have another set of some very basic generic apartments. And each of these only has 30 households. What is going on? These are fairly big buildings. It's fine, because I don't want to admit defeat yet. I still am holding on to the idea that getting higher is possible. This one is going to be quick and dirty. We have the server farm right here. And it's not going to be a great place to live. I just want some cheap, basic homes. It doesn't have to be crazy. I just want to see the population number go up. And now this section is done. That puts us at 221,000. I am genuinely hurt. As a part of this section, I want to fill out this area. Like we've been doing, I want this to be quick and dirty. And now this entire section is done. I decided to make this a park. That way we could have a bit of separation between the National Diet Building and all of our zoning. We're currently at 223,000 residents, and this district has a total of 20,000, which is still honestly kind of pathetic. Now there's only one more area that I want to do, because if I can't fill this out and at least get a decently higher number, then I don't think there's any possible way that I'm hitting 1 million today. There's 2 key roads that I want to connect in, and that's this one, all the way into this one. And now this area is ready to be filled out. We still have a bunch of demand for pretty much everything, so I'm going to make this a mix of row homes and medium density, essentially just carrying this development to the edge of our expressway. And there we go. That's going to be good enough. So now this is the entire city. And honestly, it's just massive at this point in time. I didn't even come close to my goal, but I'm still extremely happy for how all of this turned out. It's honestly just kind of crazy. There is one quick thing that we need to do, and that's rename all of these districts. The poll winners will be on screen right now. And there we go. So now we have Fargo Rose, Federal Hill, Oakmount Plateau, Richmond, because we're rich, and Glasswater Bay. And we're officially going to end it off with 225,000 population, which isn't all that bad considering that we only started with 122,000. The population has basically been doubled, and the city is starting to feel more and more real. If you made it this far, I really do hope you enjoyed. Today's shoutouts go to Gary Key, Jake Hill, Mississippi Mikey, Aiden Fernalski, Henry Vopel, Dylan Barnett, Arlen J, Sinan Ozdemir, Soyan, and to everyone else who supports the channel. Seriously, it's so appreciated. Other than that though, I'll see you in the next one, hopefully where it doesn't take 50 hours and 5 days.